Hello and welcome back to Portal Talk, presented by the Proud Warriors of Kronos, our Facebook page. I am, of course, Calibus Rand, and with me is my mentor, Mr. Bo Llewellyn of Magica. And from our own Defense Outpost United, we have Commander Xena joining us as we go through TNG, one of the greatest sci-fi shows of all time. Um, Guys, this time around, we're going to do things a little differently because apparently I've annoyed the Facebook and YouTube gods. And we're going to be a little bit more careful today. So we're just going to kind of uh, tip on this. The first one I want to talk about, of course, is The Last Outpost. And for those of you who don't remember the episode, the USS Enterprise encounters the Ferengi for the first time. There's this Tolkon Empire, and this is the episode where we are introduced for the Ferengi for the first time, and many of you probably only remember DS9's Ferengi with Quark and his family and the Grand Nagus. But this was the introduction to the Ferengi for the first time. So I'm going to start with you, Commander Xena. What were your thoughts on just, in general? And then, of course, I want to know what you thought about the Ferengi.
Um, I am not a big fan of the Ferengi. I mean, this episode, seeing them for the first time, I think DS9 kind of portrayed them just a little bit better than this episode, with, how smart they supposedly be, the weapons they were had. They were able to maneuver their ship better than the Enterprise. I thought that was kind of odd. Um, I don't know. I just think it maybe because the Ferengi was in it, and I mean, I like Quark from DS9. I like his character, but I think they were just kind of weird. We know they were really into the latinum, the money, but the finding out how they actually were with DS9, I kind of thought it was just this episode kind of portrayed them just a little bit differently for me. I just liked how DS9 did portray them better. They're not really smart, but in this one, I kind of felt like they were just smarter than what they actually were when we found out later on. So, that's just how I feel about it. The episode itself, I didn't think it was bad, but it was okay. And I still think rewatching the 6, 7 episodes that we've, going to be talking about and talked about before, I still feel like Next Generation for me is just still a little dated. I don't know if it's just because I'm just used to the special effects from the newer episodes. I don't know if it's because they're still just meeting good, that the relationships is not where I feel like I'm used to. Where later on in the season, I kind of feel like Picard is just a little bit of a prick, so to speak. And I mean, this season was okay, but I'm really waiting for they really find themselves and the friendship and the love that I kind of feel like right now is not there because it is episode 5.
I love that. Yeah, he does seem like he's got a stick up there, doesn't he? Bo, your thoughts, sir.
I want to say I agree with everything Xena said, but I want to build on it. So they lean into a lot of areas in this episode, and they almost lean in too hard. So you got your first cuss word by Picard, merde, which is French for shit, and so he's really leaning into the French, which by season 3 you're going to forget he's French until until you get to the end of it, and he suddenly has like a Shakespearean accent to him. Like there's no hint of his Frenchness. The same thing as they're leaning in it, it's like they're leaning in the wrong directions. Same thing with Data. Data every once in a while will stand up and say, query, what is this word? Blah, blah, blah. Holy cow. You can do like 5 quintuplets of data and you don't have an onboard dictionary for this. It's the same thing with the little finger puzzle that he got stuck into. So you're like, what is that about? I mean, do you want the guy navigating this galaxy class starship that can't figure out how to be able to get the finger puzzle off his hand? Seems like they're really stretching there. But where I also want to say that I believe Commander Xena is correct is that this feels like an older episode because it does lean into an older episode. So next week we're going to do TOS the Arena. So if you'll remember how the arena ended, which was the Archons, not the Archons, I forgot what their race was called. They show up at the end of it and they say, "You spared the Gorn's life. That's really noble of you. Perhaps in 1,000 years, we can reach out to you and we can make relations, but we're going to wait till then." You go to this episode and it's the same thing. They wind up sparing the Ferengi. He said, "I can destroy the ships if you want." And he was like, "No, they remind me of what we were like in our infancy," which is to a supreme being, looking at them, but like you're looking down on your competitors there. And so you're still kind of putting them down. But regardless, Riker spares them in the same way Kirk spared the Gorn. And then the supreme being, the one that's in charge of the planet, is the one that's saying, perhaps in 1,000 years, whenever you've matured, you can come back and be a part of us. I think there's a lot of areas where they're still finding themselves. Picard reminds me of somebody that is not confident. And so he's a prick all the time to hide the fact that he doesn't know how to talk to kids because he's never had a kid. And he doesn't know how to have interpersonal skills. The first thing he says to Riker is like, "I need you to make sure that I don't sound like a prick. I mean, I need you to make me sound personable."
Yeah, that was one of the things that I had picked out because I had forgotten that. Um, yeah, I look at the special effects too, and I'm like, wow, is the Enterprise actually moving, or are they just moving the thing around the Enterprise? And again, I don't think until we get into maybe like season 6 and 7 when we're really going to be like, oh, okay, this feels more like it should. You know what I mean? But yeah, now that you point a lot of that stuff out, because I thought the finger puzzle thing was kind of weird for Data, because you would by now, if he knew what Yankee traders were, but you're telling me you didn't know what a finger puzzle thing was? And then of course, remember when Scotty beams over the Tribbles and Trouble with Tribbles, the Enterprise beams over 1,000 Chinese finger puzzles to the Ferengi as the ships both warp out.
Good point. Same thing, same beats. It's and you're talking about the ship. You'll see it in this one and in the next one. There was such good work done at Farpoint Station in the first 2 episodes that they're going to reuse the same scenes over and over again. That's what caused I forgot the name of the guy and his wife that did the basically held on to the lore for so many years. Okada, I think was his name. That they would use these same scenes and then they would rename the ships. So you had an Excelsior class ship that meets with Enterprise in our next one, which is where No Man Has Gone before. And they name it the USS Hood. Well, the USS Hood shows up again later, and it doesn't look like an Excelsior class. They kind of get themselves in a little bit of a ringtail bind several times when it comes to reusing footage.
Well, I was thinking about the Ferengi, and how they, I love the way they, the human, you human, what I mean, the way I love that, because that's, you know, that expression, and it just follows them, or well, follows us throughout Trekdom, and then, and of
Mhm.
course, some other alien movies too. Uh, the one guy goes up to the one Ferengi challenges Tasha Yar. No human female or Ferengi female tells bars or whatever what to do, and you just try. And she kicks at him, and I was like, "You're chief of security. What?
Yeah.
What is that?" What I mean? And I know we're kind of, it's retroactive. We're going back. When all this happened, it was kind of like, oh, okay, again, the females were this really kind of there for eye candy, not really given, what I mean. And as we talked about in the previous episode, uh, you know, that whole fight scene with Tasha Yar thing with the monkey bars and the poison, was just kind of like, ah.
But they couldn't resist saying the women in our world don't wear clothes.
Yeah.
Well, at least they wear bras.
Yeah. You hear that, George Lucas? There are space bras out there. You can do that. No, stop. I just, and I thought that was of course, a male chauvinistic culture, the Ferengi,
Yeah.
and then of course you get in DS9 where Quark is, when he's dressing down Cisco, he goes, "You know what it is about us that makes you hate us? Because you used to be us, and it's just a reminder that you used to be us."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I love that. I love the fact that Quark can actually get that in there and kind of, hey, you're not that advanced. A few centuries ago, you were just like us. So don't sit there and try to be all high and mighty now, human. you know?
And before we lose this episode to the next one, because I know we're on a schedule here,
Yeah.
I love the Ferengi whips that they use. So I did some research to see if that had ever been used before. And Quark referenced it in an action figure in an episode that he had as a kid that had like a lightning whip on it. So it's almost like a fourth wall breaking where Quark says something about him having an action figure with a whip on it, and that's only mentioned once in DS9.
It would have been nice seeing that whip later on because the Ferengi always been. I mean, I don't want to call them a an intelligent race or a stupid race, but if they would have used that whip, I think we would have been able to see, or at least for them to perceive that they are a little bit more powerful because that's what they thought they were in this episode. Originally with the whip, how smart they were trying to, fight with Tasha, and where later on that when we really become, familiar with the Ferengi, oh, they're not like that at all. And I think showing that whip would have, at least for me, I would have a little bit more respect for the Ferengi. Now, I did for Quark because I don't think he was the normal Ferengi, but in this case, I thought they were just a lot downgraded, for who they
The
were.
like Xena, it would have been the backlith for the Ferengi.
Yes. Man,
Oh,
we can't hear you.
you're muted.
Speaking of that, we have Worf. Thank you, by the way. I pulled another Calibus.
Sorry.
he's muttering under his breath, if you want battle, come to me, and all. And I'm just like, wow, you tone that down because you're not the badass that I know you as right now, and right now you look really ridiculous.
Really
And then
bad.
those two Ferengi take him down. Where was that very proud Klingon speech?
Mhm.
That sash that he had back in the day was BS. It looked like that he had taken like a wicker basket and cut it out and made the sash. The sash from season 3, the metal one that looks like that they had made chainmail out of.
That's a TOS sash.
Is that what
Yeah,
that is?
yes, because I have it. As you guys know, I cosplay as a Klingon, and I have that sash. But my Klingon mentor and leader of my house made me one, and all he did was go down through the thrift store. You remember those woven belts that women used to wear? Well, he
And old
found
and old men.
right. So he found it,
Mark
spray
has one
painted it.
myself.
He spray painted it silver, and I tell you, it looks like a Full Metal sash. So I wear that, versus the one that I bought and I paid $90 for. I just don't have the heart to put it on there, especially after seeing that episode. Like you said, I looked at it and I was like, why does that sash look so just
Un,
yeah,
unimpressive.
yes, unimpressive, definitely. All right, guys. As you guys know, we're trying to cut down the shows and trying to keep you guys entertained for at least 30 minutes, which means when we do a show like this, we're going to cut the time in half. And now it's time to move on to the next show, because next week we have something special for you, the arena. And the
Mm.
following week, I'm going to see if I can get a guy who actually was on the show to come on our show and talk to you guys about the episode. So now we go to where no man has gone before. Well, excuse me, no one. I have to be correct here. No one, because that's representing everyone. Okay. I don't know. So the Enterprise catapulted 1 billion light years from the galaxy to test its propulsion system. We are introduced to the Traveler. Bo, your thoughts on, again, this is it's not trying to be a Wesley episode, but this kind of launches the whole thing for Wesley.
So, in our previous discussions, we have made note about how annoying sometimes Wesley can be because he's the Mary Sue of the Mary Sue. The only thing that he is not Mary Suing is his physicalities. Like he's always falling down, he's falling into a water, and Data has to lift him up and all this stuff. So physically, he's not the Mary Sue, but intellectually, he is smarter than anyone but Data on the ship, and everyone's is always talking about what a gifted child that he is. Although we really don't see the gifts that he does. It isn't like he's like that Beverly walks into their quarters and he's developed a brand new type of device that has never been seen before, and it's wowing everyone. But the reason why is because Gene Roddenberry, he's commonly known as an insert character for Gene. So Gene sees himself as Wesley in those beginning episodes. Will Wheaton has talked about this ad nauseum. And it created a lot of moments where Picard would shut up Wesley, and people were telling him to shut up because the grown-ups were wanting to do their job, and Wesley was like coming up with great ideas to the point where Beverly has given Picard lip at one point, like, just like my son told you. So in this particular episode, it's a little creepy. So you've got the Traveler who, for some reason, takes a shine to this kid. So he's like, you're special. Wesley is like one of your brilliant composers, Mozart. How? How does he know this? Like, did Wesley walk up and like reorientate something that he was doing? According to the Traveler, it had the design that the guy had was meaningless. That he was using his hands to phase the Enterprise into these great leaps of speed. Then later, Wesley goes with him, this underage kid that is like going off into the galaxy to do whatever. And then he comes back and he's a little bit changed. Whenever you watch Picard, he seems more godlike. So it's almost like that Gene Roddenberry's character eventually gets turned into a god himself, where maybe the Star Trek writers just kind of embraced it. But The annoying part of Wesley is in full display here, where the traveler takes. If I was Picard, I'd be like, hey, dude, quit talking to that kid. Like, get the freak away from him and like do your job. And I don't know, it just seems a little bit like everyone that Wesley encounters, he's they're recognized by that individual as he is something special and should be paid attention to. That's beyond all the other things about why in the world that someone at Starfleet didn't recognize that this person's designs were nonsense before they went out to their flagship to go test it on there. Like, why wouldn't you test it on a runabout or something else? Like, we got an experimental thing that we're going to do. What do you want to do? Let's do the flagship of the Federation. Let's see if we can run it into a sun.
Well, they did actually say that they tried it on other ships. So,
That's true.
so I can see where, okay, it's, the flagship, we're going to go ahead and do it there. So I can kind of see, because if the Traveler was doing the thing for the other ships, then Starfleet wouldn't know that, this guy is just, all mouth. So I'm kind of okay with that. Although I do remember in one scene where Riker and Picard, in the beginning of the episode, they were talking about, hey, I thought this was a flagship, and I thought this was a new ship, and why do we need this guy doing that? I think that was Riker kind
Yep.
of
Yeah.
saying that, if I recall. So I kind of feel like, not to go off key, that's why I kind of like Janeway a little bit better, because she knew her ship, where here is easily apparent that Picard didn't really know his ship. Go ahead.
And Miss Zena, let me build on what you're saying. This episode classically is considered to be the inspiration for DS9, and that where the writers got the idea. Because if you think about it, you had the ship get propelled into a distant star system that was going to take them, like, I forget what they said on the show, how
300
long.
years to get back.
Right. And then with DS9, you had them go through, I think it was a wormhole that popped them out in a different galaxy altogether. And so classically, that's where that feel comes from. And to answer Marky Mark's question on there, do you feel that this way, he's meaning Wesley, because of his age or just because of his character? Not because of his age, because the way the guy was written. Like,
Yeah.
you just did not have the childlike wonder that you would need. I thought that a show like the one that was the spin-off of Star Trek that came on, that had the writer of the Family Guy as the captain,
The Orville.
Orville.
the Orville. I don't know why I blanked.
That was a great
The
show.
the Orville was much better done. The children in that show were believable brats. They were believable because they were just dealing with life crises, and they weren't geniuses, but they weren't dumb. They weren't unempathetic, but they weren't overly empathetic. They were very believable children on a starship that you had a single mom that was just doing her best, and then she walks in with a boyfriend that's an android from another galaxy, and you find out how that can be integrated in, and it was just chef's kiss. Great writing, and that's the way you do it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I just, at this point, I think, like you said, there was a little bit of Riker in him, if you know what I mean, because of what, Gene was doing. And then, of course, Wesley, I've heard that too, that was supposed to be him, this child prodigy thing. But I just, I kind of felt Riker's, they're like, this is the Enterprise flagship, our engines are at its peak efficiency,
Mhm.
and his stuff is gibberish. Even the chief engineer, and that was another thing that I really got kind of annoyed at, that they didn't have a good chief engineer. They kept trying to put everybody on the bridge, knowing you got all this ship. I understand that you want to, not make it about three people and a ship like you did TOS. I understand that. But at the same time, it worked. And the supporting characters, Scotty, Uhura, Sulu, Chekhov, and that one guy that was always in the jumpsuit that made it to Star Trek 2 as a helmsman. Oh, no. He was a communications officer. He made it finally and that was his big reveal.
Yeah.
But, because I kept thinking, I said, oh, wait a minute. When did Geordi get down to engineer? And he was only down there to help them with the situation
Yeah.
and giving orders. And I was like, well, first of all, you got the wrong shirt. Get on out of here. Get on out of here. Go back to, you know what I mean? Because Worf would run to his station, and you could tell that they didn't have their placing, and that was one of the things that Michael Dorn had said. He said that he was kind of happy that the situation gave his character purpose. He was sad, of course, to see Tasha go the way she did, but when they're going down to the surface, Tasha and Worf, you know what I mean, and which kind of undermined Tasha giving a woman authority. You know what I mean? Unlike Strange New Worlds, where we got a security officer who seems to just run at the mouth any chance that she
I
gets.
do not get that.
Oh
The
my
lack the lack of decorum on the bridge
Yeah.
is antithetical to the discipline needed to be in Starfleet.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to throw this out to you guys because I know we're doing this. This is TNG. I really want to talk about Strange New Worlds too.
Let's pop over there whenever you like. Holy
You know what
cow.
I mean? Especially when the series starts kicking off, because there was something that Commander Xena and I kept talking about. Was there would be no way that even on Janeway's ship you don't do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're not in a crunch right now, so it's yes, Captain. You know what I mean? Quick. But
Yeah.
these people are just, and I'm shocked. You know what I mean? Because there'd be no way you could, and then the first officer looks to the captain. Chris, are you going to say something? Chris, you're going to say something? We just need to calm down here. You're the captain. Be the
Wow.
captain of your ship. That's one thing, though, I have to give to Picard.
Yeah.
Because when Picard turned around and said, that's enough, or whatever, everybody, get back to my job over here on this console. You know what I mean? So I love that. I love that Picard and Cisco, they took care of their people. Janeway as well.
And Kirk every once in a while would snap back at his people.
God,
Like
man.
if he was on the bridge, like if he was in a happy mood, he might make a joke or something like that, or he might let someone make a little remark. But I can remember him in one scene, he was talking about a problem that they had, and Uhura gave her input, and then Chekhov gave his input, and then Scotty gave his input, and he goes, I did not welcome in a debate.
Yeah.
Like this was not, and it's just like whoop. And it was, he would do it quite often. And I think going to those episodes and skipping around on the pond that is the Star Trek different, like Enterprise. I think Enterprise is a great show, and a lot of the later seasons really picked up. By the way, I found out some delicious inside scoop information that was dropped today from one of the screenwriters of Enterprise, and that came out today on TikTok. Did you hear about what was initially planned for the Mirror Darkly episode, where the USS Defiant was pushed into the mirror universe on Enterprise? Do you remember that episode?
I remember that episode, yeah.
Do you know that it was not supposed to be Captain Archer on that Enterprise? That was actually supposed to be... I'm so happy that you guys aren't nodding your head, because this means that I'm giving you fresh information.
Yeah.
This makes me so happy. So Okay, so you remember the Tantalus device that Kirk had in his quarters, and you'd push
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
button,
yeah, yeah,
and it would blink the person out of existence.
Yeah.
Well, the original script of that was that the Tantalus device did did not just simply blink them out of existence. It sent them into the mirror darkly. So meaning it was taking them through, they were still in the mirror universe, but they were shifted to an even darker version of the mirror universe. So all those people that they blinked out, all the people Kirk did, and then Spock went in his quarters, and remember he was like, "I will consider it, Captain,"
right.
and he went in there, and so he took Tiberius and blinked him out. So all those people got shifted over to the mirror universe, and so in the Tholian web, the episode in TOS when the Defiant was shifted into the alternate universe, that got shifted to that universe, the one that showed up on Enterprise. So they had signed William Shatner to reprise his role as
Oh
Tiberius
my God.
Kirk, and he and all the characters that had been Tantalus devised into this other universe were going to be his crew, and they
Oh,
had
wow.
finally so they had been stranded on this planet, and then when the Defiant showed up, they found a way to get to the Defiant, and so now they were marauding across the mirror universe, taking over and Kirk was like, so you just didn't blink me out. You shifted me to this planet and where I was abandoned like Khan was in his planet.
Mm.
And so you had this Khan revival where that they had found Kirk and all these rejects. And you got to remember, Kirk is the one that blinked out all these people, so they were his enemies. So whenever he shows up over there, he has to outmaneuver them, outthink them, and he becomes their general, their captain. He takes command of them. And then whenever the Defiant shows up, he boards the ship. So in that episode, that's who they were supposed to encounter. And Kirk was going to like take over the galaxy because he got blinked over with the Defiant. It was going to be dope, but they couldn't pay Shatner's salary, and the Paramount, which I believe was in charge of it at the time, they didn't have enough faith because it was the last season, and they were like, "Hey, we've lost too many of our viewerships. We don't believe we can do this." And they argued. They said, "You put William Shatner in this."
It would have lasted another season.
Man.
Exactly. Exactly.
But
Well, what you telling me?
you know who pulled the plug on that on Enterprise?
Who?
Harvey Weinstein.
You're kidding me.
Listen, his whole deal was he hated Star Trek. He didn't understand it. He didn't care
It's
for it.
because he's
And the
dumb.
moment that it started dropping, that's when he was like, pull the plug on it. Harvey Weinstein pulled the plug on Star Trek. When
Wow.
I found that out, I was so pissed. And then later, of course, we find out what he's been doing.
Yeah.
But that's Star Trek's lot. It's a very cerebral show. And then when J.J. Abrams came out and said, I never got into it. It was always too much thinking, and yeah, it shows in your movies. Transporting from planet to other solar
Oh
systems.
my God, that was so dumb.
And I'm like,
And
well, then what the hell
I,
you need a starship for, JJ? What? I
Im-
mean,
immediately when Spock went out onto that planet or that moon and looked up and saw Vulcan. First of all, Spock has said in TOS Vulcan has no moon.
yeah,
Whenever he was talking to Uhura. Second, do you even know how solar systems work? I mean, you wouldn't be able to see that planet from another planet. It would be so far away.
I was, um, and, and this is how much of a fan I am. I own them. I don't watch them, but I
Yeah.
own them.
Yeah.
I mean, I always go back to the original six.
Yep.
Every now and then, I mean, I still love that encounter with the Borg, first contact. And if I'm feeling nostalgic, I'll go ahead and do Insurrection, or yeah, right,
Yeah.
Insurrection. And the Borg one though, the last one, I can't do it. I can't. I do love the ending though. That ending where they're talking about Data, that was really touching. And then of course you hear that music, dun 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 dun, and
To, to
Picard's
abs
walking.
to absent friends.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's walking through the his corridor, of his ship and everything. I love that. That's Trek. And then of course, we got the rebooted movies, and I was just like, oh my.
If I can find that clip, I'll send it to you so we can post it up
Oh
on
God, yes, yeah.
because it was when I was seeing it, like my heart started racing as I was watching it. Then I realized that they just didn't have faith in us to enjoy it and revamp it. Like I do not know why that whenever they give us what we want, like you give Luke Skywalker walking in
Mm,
on The Mandalorian and you see
mm.
these swell of appreciation, and that the next time they show Luke, it is this weird amalgamation of let's try to force Grogu back into the story when he should just be at the academy. Just let him
Yeah.
be at the academy.
Okay, now I know about that one too. They were like, put Grogu back. There's no way, because his John Favreau was like, no, he's not coming back. He's not coming back for at least a year. He's coming back in season 4. This is going to be about Din going back doing what he's doing, where they could do the inserts for Grogu and Luke and keep Luke in there. They're not having it. They don't want anything to do with Luke Skywalker.
No.
After that, Kathleen Kennedy said that you could bring him in as a flashback or a talking point, but there is no Luke Skywalker.
It's
They
Who's
want to keep
crazy.
him,
making the money though? By the
and
time
that's
that
their
he
thing.
came, Luke. I mean, we all love Luke, but he wasn't the money maker, and that's why they had to keep on bringing Grogu
And they
back.
said they wanted Grogu back because you can't go a whole season without the guy that's making us the money, and
Right.
that was Grogu. Season 5 of Enterprise was going to be the Romulan War. The start of the
Wow.
Romulan War. That's where
Where
they were going. And I was like, that would have just been, because the Dominion War did wonders for DS9. Can you
Yeah,
imagine the Romulan War? Now we're going to go into the Romulan side of everything. We're going to get to hear from the Romulans' point of view. That to me, I love backstory on the aliens because we know all about Earth stuff. We already know about the Federation.
hmm
yeah,
But now you're bringing in the Klingons. We know about the Klingons, but now you're going to give us the Romulans. We'll probably get the offshoot of when they left Vulcan and started their own thing. It would have been just so epic. And then, of course, no, their numbers are dropping. Pull it, because he didn't care for the product.
yeah.
And then Redstone was fighting to get Star Trek back to the way it was. You had Viacom and the Redstone organization all fighting to get Star Trek back on track, and then it got bought out. I think Redstone did win, but now they're trying to put it back on track. But they're not doing a very good job when you keep shows like, I don't know, Lower
I
Decks.
was about to say Lord.
I mean, because for me,
Yeah,
if you're going to do Rick and Morty, go do Rick and Morty. Leave my Star Trek alone. Please don't just, do that. And then,
let me ask you this, folks. And by the way, if you're not catching up with the chat, it's getting kind of funny. The
yeah, right?
if you had had Quentin Tarantino complete his Star Trek the original series movie, but he got a briefing from J.J. Abrams where they started trying to tell him what the Kelvin timeline was and all that stuff, and he is quoted as saying, he said, "Look, Kirk is Kirk. Spock is Spock, McCoy is McCoy. There is no Kelvin timeline. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, Kelvin timeline. There's just the Holy Trilogy. Put them in a situation that grounds them in reality, and let the triad, the intellectual Spock, the emotionally connected and grounded McCoy, and the natural leader of Kirk, deal with the problem the way that they deal with things." And he said they wouldn't let him do it. And
Yeah.
so that was going to be his final movie. Quentin's only doing, I think it's 11 movies. And so he was like, "That's going to be my 11th." I think it's 11, but you bucked Quentin Tarantino. That should tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
When Quentin's like, "Hey, would you like an Academy Award winning Star Trek that people are going to love?" But part of me thinks that the studios are afraid of being embarrassed.
Oh no, definitely. You think about it because, and again, we have to go where the iron is hot. Look what Kathleen Kennedy wants to go out on a win. She's not going to go out on a win unless she goes out on The Mandalorian, and she's got
Right.
to let those people do what they want to do with this movie. That's the only way to get her win. To to bring in what she wants in a movie, it just destroys it. She did that with season 3 of The Mandalorian. That's her influence. That's why we got what we got. That's why Jon Favreau quit. I mean, you saw his character die. His character dies, and that was kind of like symbolic, like, I'm sorry guys, I give up.
I
I'm
gave it
done
my
with
best
this.
shot.
Yeah, I'm done with this. So the studios aren't going to let someone else make something better than them, you know, because if you do that, that just shows that you were messed up all along. It
Hmm.
was wrong all along. Now they're trying to get focus groups, super fan focus groups in to test the waters before they send this stuff out.
Really?
Oh, that's the new plan. That's
I've
they,
always said they should have did this with all these movies that we are big fans of. I've been telling that for Mark for years because when they coming out with these films, these scripts, and I came up with an idea. Let me go ahead and do it because I'm the head. Where they need that super fan to read it and say, okay, wait a minute, so so wouldn't do this. This doesn't make any sense. I know you're the head of the company, the director, the producer, whoever, but this doesn't make sense. This character would not do this. So I actually think they should get somebody, not too nerdy, but get somebody to read these scripts and say, hey, look, yes, no, you don't have to listen because I'm just a fan, but I know better than you because I've read all the books. I read all the comics. I saw this version of it, that version of it, and in my opinion, I know what works and what don't.
Zena, do you think that those showrunners are that out of touch with the lore?
Yes.
Or I was going to say, do you think that they're being pushed to ignore the lore?
I don't think they're really being pushed. I really do think that they believe because they're the head, they know what's right. I don't think that somebody's saying, hey, look, you need to do this. Because if they're already the head, they already have that say so. And I'm not saying that that super fan could be right, but let them read it. Let it be more than one. Let it be two or
oh
three.
no, it's a group. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
group
let
of
it be a
fans.
group to
The
sit
thing is,
there and give an opinion.
you got to remember too now, because apparently on Discovery they brought in a group of people that were supposed to protect them. 3 episodes from the end of season 1 is when they bring these people in. The damage is done.
Yeah.
You can't. I don't care. You could have drafted me, and I would have looked at you like you're fucked.
Yep.
You waited to the last 3 episodes to bring me in to what, clean this mess up?
Yeah.
There's nothing other than you telling. You should have said it from the beginning that this was in the Kelvin timeline.
Mm.
You're going to tell this is the prime timeline because you want to change it. JJ's toy sales were in the toilet, and he's like, look, I've got comics, I've got video games, I've got everything banking on this. I need you to stop selling the TOS stuff. The Paramount looked at him and went, TOS stuff is the only thing that's selling. We're
Yep.
not stopping that. Your toys aren't leaving the shelf. I can attest to this because I have a bridge set from the Kelvin Timeline Enterprise that is incomplete because they stopped making the sales of those toys. So when I wrote the company, they said, we don't even have prototypes for them. We're very sorry, Mr.
Wow.
Rand. But I said, so I have an incomplete bridge set because you don't. Why did you even come out with this? You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that if you don't sell enough toys and you don't do this right, you don't get anything. But JJ was upset, and they told him no, that they're not going to stop selling the TOS stuff, and that's when his deal kind of went in the shitter because he couldn't do what he really wanted to do. And then of course his go-to was the same guy that is the showrunner for well, Discovery and now Strange New Worlds, but I think somebody else is handling Strange New Worlds now. But it doesn't work because they didn't have a love for the project and they wanted to make it their own. And when you change something that's been in the works since 1966, and then here it comes 2009, and you want to change it and try to make it this thing that what it is, your fans aren't there to greet it.
Hey,
Um,
hey, Xena
Hmm?
and Cal.
yeah.
I did a quick search on Superfan with Disney and how to become like a script doctor for Disney. And there's an actual program for application to become a 2025. There's a writing program for how to go to work for Disney and in their writing services. So this little geek is going to apply, and I'll keep you guys updated as to how that goes, because that would certainly, if I was able to in any way pass the audition stage and get in there, even as someone that's just sampling the scripts just to get feedback, that would be interesting inside info for us to be able to discuss.
Oh God, yes. Yeah. Try. The worst they can say is no. You know what I mean?
I'm on it.
It's try it. I mean, we got to do something because
That'd be cool.
you know what I mean. Our fan base, they're not really listening, and now they're starting to listen because a lot of things are changing because it's not. This thing with the Acolyte is the thing that everybody is talking about, and they're like, well, what did we do wrong? You know what you did wrong. You know what you did wrong. Can we face that fact? You know what you did wrong. Yes, I loved it. How dare you say that? It's the truth. Only you liked it because obviously not enough of you did like it to get a renewal. It wasn't canceled. It was not renewed. It was always a season 1 with a possibility of a season 2. It wasn't renewed. It wasn't canceled, it wasn't renewed, meaning there wasn't enough people watching your show to make a season 2. I can't, I didn't make this up. This is the laws of capitalism. You know what I mean? So let's pray that Skeleton Crew does well. Okay. I'm still a Star Wars fan. I will always be a Star Wars fan. But right now, I'm only in my little hen kitten that allows me to go up to Ahsoka and not beyond Ahsoka.
All I know is that next time we talk, there's going to be a guy in a rubber suit that's painted green, and he's going to be talking into a hair curler, and he's going to be like, Captain Kirk.
I am excited because one, this is our celebration for your birthday, so we're gonna make
Yay!
this up. And it's gonna be an hour long because I know we got tons to talk about
Oh
this
my
show.
God. So much to talk
Show.
about.
So we're gonna talk about it. We hope you all join us next week as we go. Well, yeah, Ahsoka had issues too, but you know what? I can watch Rosario run around versus a half naked Korean man coming out of the water. I'm sorry. That's just me.
Rosario Dawson is scalding hot.
Yeah.
I'm, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Ahsoka. I'm just saying. Um, you know, it's gonna be a blast, guys. I hope you join us next week as we discuss the arena. celebrating Mr. Bo Llewellyn's birthday. I want to
Yay.
thank my co-hosts for joining me, of course, Commander Zena, Mr. Bo Llewellyn, and thank you for joining us as we discussed these two episodes. I know we got a little off topic and we went a little bit further than we normally would, but once the subject gets hot and it gets good, we travel with it. No pun intended, Wesley. We got somebody else coming in here saying
Hit the like button and subscribe.
subscribe. There's my man. That's my general manager. Always trying to give us that 11 cents.
Hmm.